What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video we're going to take a look at the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 6 GSR Flow Edition, which at first I do have to admit, by the way, I was kind of like mixed on the way this car did look. Like I was like, you know what, it's kind of like I guess it's going to be kind of a cool drift car, but after looking at this car for a bit though, guys, I really do love the way this thing does look with this body kit, and those rims look awesome. And if you were wondering, by the way, it is indeed going to look different than the regular GSR. You guys will see the rims are different, plus it doesn't have the splitter on the front. You also don't see like the intercooler on the front either, so I do love when they actually make some of these cars look insanely unique. I do know a lot of players most likely did not like that Summit either because that drift race was definitely something else, but looking at this car here on the customization menu, which if you guys were wondering, by the way, you obviously can't do anything to it. Who knows though, maybe in the future of Motorfest you can actually change around some Summit cars a bit and maybe change around some customization on them. Like I know they're special, but maybe changing around a few parts that you may not like for example that huge wing. But this is obviously a drift car, so I guess it does kind of make sense. Now there's a few things I do want to look at on this car, guys. I will also be doing an outside look here in a quick second, but I really do love the way this car is designed. So obviously you have the intercooler in the front, and the left side's also going to be the filter, where the right side is indeed a fog light. I do like the way that does look. Plus we have a carbon fiber hood, and you can also see the engine in this car as well, which honestly looks awesome. Not gonna lie though, I don't know which engine is in this car. I may have to look that up real fast though. But for all the car guys though, which engine is going to be in the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 6? To be honest, I don't really know, but I really do love the way the fitment on this car is as well, guys. Look how perfect this looks. My goodness, those rims look awesome. They're like, are those like a shaded color? I see like different colors on those, like a green, maybe like a red going around the top piece there. Looks like this rim's going to be the same as well. I do like the way that does look. My goodness, they really do kill some of these recent Summit cars. I have to admit, even though that wing is going to be huge, it doesn't really look bad on this car either. In fact, I would say having a wing that size on this drift car most likely fits it. Like you can almost see like the profile of this car making sense for the most part. Like if that was a small wing, I do think this car would honestly look very odd. But besides all that though, guys, let's go do an outside look of this vehicle right now and also do some drift race testing. So moving over to the outside look of the Mitsubishi, one thing I noticed right off the bat is going to be how the rims look in the sunlight. I really do love seeing like the ruby color and or like the green in the middle, and you can also see the carbon fiber basically glistening in the sunlight, so I really do feel like a lot of players really are going to love the way this car does look. I also really like how drift cars have like that crazy like turn radius as well. Like that's kind of insane. I may have to look up more stuff on drifting because I do find it very fascinating. I'm just not insanely into that stuff, but I might have to go back into more drift stuff because my goodness guys, drift cars are honestly insane for that matter with how they are built. But moving over to the first person view of this car, the first thing you most likely notice is whoever had this car did not drive this thing at all. 13,000 miles is nothing. You will then see like the roll cage going around like the entire door, so I do like the small attention to detail. Do keep in mind though, whoever has this car also do loves the AC, because look at that middle screen. That thing is on auto. My goodness, like lower that a bit, it's a drift car. But then again, if you actually could go to a drift track and or keep your AC in, that would most likely be a goal, especially living in Texas or Florida. These places are basically insanely hot like an oven. So looking at the back view though, you can also see like the overall detail of this car. I have to admit guys, Ubisoft killed this thing. Now, one of the first things I did notice about the Evolution was by far going to be that engine sound, guys. I love the way this car does sound when you are drifting. It really does sound crazy bouncing off that rev limiter, but one thing I have to admit though is I did jump into 3 different drift events with this car, and the biggest thing I did want to find out though is, do you actually have to change the pro settings on it? And well, it does turn out guys, you actually can leave this thing completely stock. And I would say a lot of players most likely wonder how these cars do perform, especially being stock. Now, if we look at something like the 370Z Pro Drift, that car is obviously going to be absolutely insane in basically every way, but I was like, you know what, sure, the Lancer is probably not going to be as good as that car, but you know what, let's leave this thing completely stock and see how it does. And well guys, it does turn out I would probably say you do not have to touch anything on this vehicle if you do want to run this thing in a summit. I was getting well over 600,000 points in basically every event I did, which by the way was only 3, but I still managed to get well over 600k. And if you were getting scores like that in a summit, you're by far going to be at 157,000 points and or maxed out score. So I would say it is going to be like a win-win not being able to mix around that car. Now, sure, you could probably mix around the pro settings a bit and probably like fine-tune them slightly, but to be honest though, I would say right out of the box, I do think this car is actually insanely decent and very capable for basically every drift event in this game. So one way I also wanted to test this out though is I did jump into 3 of the more annoying events instead of doing the insanely easy terminal drift there in Miami. So I wanted to do like the Detroit one that has lots of tight turns and also some weird areas you can actually run into a lot of stuff. And it does turn out, guys, the Lancer handled this insanely well. It does turn out though, guys, I would probably say the Mitsubishi, for having regular and or like base settings on this thing, it really did handle its own very well. Now sure, is it going to be like the best drift car? I would say that's left to be desired, but from what I did see, guys, running this car on some of these more annoying drift events, I was insanely impressed with this car. So a few things I did notice though. I do want to know, by the way, guys, do you actually use manual and or automatic in drift cars? I would probably say it's based on preference and or like if you do want to actually keep the car in a set gear, and then most likely use like a lot of throttle control, which I would probably say the Lancer Evolution most likely is going to shine tremendously on this. And I would say the biggest reason for this is most likely the way this car does have its power being distributed. So for example, guys, the Pro Drift's obviously insanely quick. I did notice the Evolution does also like over rev in some gears, which is insanely helpful, especially for drifting. That way you can push this thing around corners, and you also don't necessarily have to shift it, so you can keep like the stability up. And I would probably say that's going to be one of the biggest things about this. So around most corners I was basically in second gear most of the time. I would then shift into third certain times as well, but it did seem second gear was like the best one, and then some of like the bigger straightaways I was able to go into third. So I really do think the Lancer is going to be a very good drift car. Now the biggest question is though, is this car actually going to be great for summits? So even on base settings, guys, I was getting, like I said, around 600,000 points. So you would easily have a maxed out score in a summit. So that way, guys, if you don't want to change any settings on a car like the Evolution, you can easily run this car in like a summit and still get a very high score. Are you most likely going to be breaking records like getting 850k? I would probably say most likely not on base settings, but even then though, this car really does do an insanely great job on the track though, and I was honestly really surprised seeing like a racing type of drift event in that summit, so hopefully we do not see that for a very long time though. I actually do think, guys, I've only seen that one other time in the entire time I've been playing the Crew 2, so it's most likely going to be insanely rare, but that doesn't mean we may see it in Motorfest. Let's hope not, especially seeing like a drift car like this. But I would like to know your thoughts on the Lancer Evolution 6 in the comments below. And as always, guys, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more insight.